back up your claims with research. Why is that the case? Why did you pick that color? Why did you pick this unique selling point? Why did you pick all this type of stuff, right? Hey guys, this is ManuFracture, brand strategist and founder of ManuFracture. Here today with another episode of Missions of an Agency. Today we're going to be talking about presenting to clients, right? Presenting to clients, because presenting to clients is something that is just as important as, doing the work for clients. Presenting, communicating your ideas properly so that the client gets what you're coming from and you're selling from, and you're telling them that it's a good idea, why it is a good idea, right? So ultimately, there's a few three things that are going to happen when people present to a client, right? There's going to be A, they're going to agree with you. B, they're not going to agree with you, and they're going to have reasons why. And C, they're going to agree with you, but they have more questions. Now, the first part is really going to be just they don't agree with you. And why is that? Usually it's because you set up a presentation to be your own appeal, right? Sometimes it happens even if you put all the data out and they just say, I don't like it, right? But then that's a whole different way of doing things, right? But let's just say, for the most part, people and designers who just are beginning or don't know how to present very well, they're going to put into terms of all aesthetics. They're going to say, I chose this because of this and this color and that color and stuff like that, or I chose this brand because that brand. You need to back up your claims with research. Why is that the case? Why did you pick that color? Why did you pick this unique selling point? Why did you pick all this type of stuff, right? You need to back this up with rationale. The only way to convince a client who isn't a designer, who doesn't think like a designer, is to just talk into terms they understand and then rationale they understand, right? Always go back to the strategy session, and always you should be creating your presentation based off the strategy session. Just like I said in my last video, you take the insights and you translate it into a nice, clear format so people can see, so your client can see immediately what it is that you're doing. Okay, so that's really important to always hark back to the strategy session. So you're always going to hear, me saying, like, so I got this because, in the strategy session we talked about and then you bring up the client's exact words, the exact words they've used, and reiterate them and put them, out there to your client as well, because then they will know that you're listening, right? In psychology, if you're using the exact words that person's using, it shows that you're listening. Obviously, don't overdo it because it looks like you're mimicking them, but in this case, it's quite important. So if they said something in the strategy session that evidences to the point or the idea, the brand positioning, or the the USP, or the identity design or the stylescape you're presenting, say that in the entire conversation. Say that inside of the presentation when you're talking about it, right? And so that's very good. You should be able to do that, and then you'll be able to get clients from that. Client buy-in from that, because that's what you're looking for. The buy-in from a client, right? So that's the first thing, right? If you haven't presented the facts in an objective format, they're not going to get it, and they're going to be, really iffy about whatever you're going to say because you have no rationale to back it, right? So then the second thing is they don't like it, and they don't like it at all, right? Or they like it, but they have, compromises or questions about the things, right? And so you have to go through there and kind of go through a fine-pick comb every single point they have and really figure out, is this an objective decision, or is this a subjective decision? If it is a subjective decision, you need to talk to the client more and say, listen, we could change the color, but here's the thing. With the target market, we don't know if that's a good thing, given that also the competitive research we've seen here and here and here, you don't stand out very well if you use this color. Everyone is using blue here, blah, 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 right? So that is how you structure, something around that, using rationale to say, that you don't want to change a color, right? You don't want to change a color just because, oh, I don't like it, right? That's a subjective thing, and you have to make sure that that's not being the thing that's being the decision that's being made, right? That I like it, right? There's obviously going to be subjectivity in design for everything that we do. But the key thing is always going to be with, it's always going to be, we always have to make sure it's objective, because we always are making design for a reason. If we're not doing it for ourselves, we're doing it for a reason, and that's one of the reasons, right? To get to the goal we set in the first place, right? So now that you understand those are the three things that can happen within a client meeting interaction, that you don't need to worry about most things. You just know that they're either going to like it, they're going to have, compromises about it, or they're just going to really love it, and they're going to be on board with you immediately. Those are three things that are going to happen. Now, how do you structure a presentation? All right, how do you structure a presentation? Especially if it's a strategy overview, you need to make sure that you're priming them with information, an introduction. Immediately, you need to make sure an introduction is in there so they know the actual context and what's going to go on, right? This is a psychological trick or thing called priming. When you put something in front of the first piece of information in front of someone, they tend to think it's more important than everything else, and they remember that information more than everything else. So you're technically framing the entire conversation so that it goes that way, so that it works that way. And it's not an evil psychological trick. It's just how the brain works, right? So priming is important because it helps your client digest what is the main frame of this entire conversation. What's the context of this conversation, right? We're not here to talk about colors. We're not here to talk about type, but we're here to talk about colors and type based off of strategy session, based off of goals we have, based off of this, that, and the third, right? That's very important. So you need to have an introduction to prime and make sure that you're framing the conversation correctly under that pretense. The second thing is to make sure you put an overview of the strategy session and the insights of the strategy session. Put the user profiles, the brand attributes, whatever framework you use. Make sure you show the framework, and then you list the insights afterwards and say, I got this from this. I got this from this, right? I got that you have this tone of voice, or I think you have, this sort of insight, right? Because of X, Y, Z, right? And so you need to just focus on that and just tell the main insights, right? The main insights are going to build up to the USP, the unique selling point, right? Or if you have competitive research, you put competitive research alongside with all these different things, and that works as well. So to summarize so far, we have the intro and the build-up. The intro, the build-up, right? You're basically creating a story-like structure where most humans, love to hear things in story-like structures, where you have a build-up, build-up, build-up. You have an intro, states the opening shot, right? The opening shot that establishes the establishing opening shot or whatever, and then you have the intro, or you have the build-up, the events that happened to lead up to the climax, which is the release of the USP, the unique selling point, right? What was the main thing, the main idea, the big idea that we got from all this research, from all this sort of for all these sessions? What is the big fucking thing? And what is that? That's the big idea, the USP, whatever. And you'd say, the USP, okay. You explain the USP, you tell about the strategy session, why you came, and connect the two together. So the client can see that's connected, and then after you do that, you basically go on and talk about the other stuff, like the purpose of the company, the why, the mission, the vision, why, how they do it, the process, how do they actually do it, and all this different type of stuff. And you just keep going through there, and that's like the climax part, right? So you make sure, and then you have the descending action, which is just showing the types of visuals, the stylescapes, etc., and showing them, where this leads up to. Sometimes people can try to do this as the climax, right? But I like to make the climax the big idea, because that sticks in their mind, that's the thing that we're revolving everything around, right? So the visuals start to make sense after that. But versus if you put the visuals in the front and then explain what at the strategy session why they did that, it's not as effective, because you're still not summarizing the main insights of the strategy session in a succinct sentence, which is what you need to do. Okay? And then, so after that, so you show all the visuals and stuff, and then you also, have a little bit of a marketing audit, small little marketing audit, if they have any current materials, just to tell your advice, and to also build up on, listen, your brand or your brand identity at the moment is a bit cold, looks a bit cold. It needs to be more warmer like this, right? So again, it's about bringing evidence to the table and making your point, right? And then again, after that, you basically end it with not how do I like it. You never end with how do you like it, because that's a subjective way of framing it. It's about, do you think that these things have met the goals we set out to do in the beginning, which is A, trusting, have a trustworthy perception of you as a tutor, or B, what other things that you have and all the marketing materials to get you clients, basically. And those are the two things. So when you end it like that, these people start to really realize that this is an objective thing, again, objective frame, and then they answer in that objective frame, right? And if they have any subjective viewpoints, they filter it through that objective frame, which you put out, right? That question gives them the chance to put that in that frame, so then they give you a better answer overall, right? And that's really it. And then you talk with the client. You again compromise. What are you going to do? What agree on things. Agree on a visual direction. Agree on the tone of voice. Agree on all the things that you've made in the strategy session, and then go forward. This way, you're scaffolding the process up, ever so slightly. That when they get to the end, it's just a logical progression to the end, and they don't feel like you've rushed them or you've put them in a position to choose things that they don't know what you're talking about, and they're more, inclined to push back. This helps them actually, get involved with the process, and then, actually make good decisions. And you also happy because you get to, have your creative cake and eat it too. So yeah, that's about it. And check out my other videos. If you want to subscribe to the channel, just subscribe, turn on notifications, all that good YouTube stuff. And I'll see you on the next one, hopefully with my camera. Hopefully with my camera charged. See ya.